Alright, so hey everyone, today I want to take a look at Ion Fury, its dead zones, and some acceleration issues it has. So, this game uses square dead zones. This game has dead zone options. I'm just demonstrating them at 20% right now. You can see the view capped vertically, but square dead zones. These have the side effect of restricting diagonal movement around the axes based on the size, and you can see I can make these large bobbing motions or point at obvious angles, and the cursor moves perfectly left in this case. And it's very easy to see when capping the view like this that you don't get diagonal movement until you break out of these axial regions. This obviously makes diagonal movement incorrect and aiming just clunkier in general, because so much of your stick is only outputting 4 directions. Movement is exactly the same, so I won't really cover that. But as I said, there are dead zone options, so I'm going to lower this to 0 to demonstrate that. And you can see now that the slightest stick movements create cursor movement. So this is great for making more precise adjustments and making the controls feel more responsive. And you can see that with no dead zone, no axial dead zone, that you do have access to full diagonal movement. So square dead zones aren't ideal, but being able to lower the dead zone mitigates this heavily. Now I really want to move on to the acceleration issues this game has. The first one is the acceleration curve. For those unaware, the acceleration curve is how your stick input translates into turn speed. So for example, if you move your stick a little bit, you expect to have your cursor move very slow. If you press it fully, you want to move at max speed, and anything in between will translate to a specific turn rate based on whatever curve the game uses. So in this case, I'll show it on screen. This game seems to use a quadratic curve, but it caps at 50%. Now, there's nothing really wrong with the quadratic curve, but capping at 50% is a big issue, because you can kind of see here, mimicking the graph, if I move, you can see that it's increasing pretty gradually, and then the acceleration caps at about 50. And if I keep moving further, there's no further speed increase. It's just static the rest of the time. So this essentially means that like 50% of your stick, it does nothing. It's all just considered max speed. So all your usable movements are just within 50% of the stick's range about. Now capping or using some outer dead zone is pretty common. A lot of games will cap the acceleration curve before it hits the edge of stick movement, but it's normally at like 90% or 95%, something near the edge. Here, it's just wasting quite a bit more space. This is made worse because this acceleration curve does not scale with dead zone size. So, for example, you can see just how slow the cursor is moving, just barely moving it. If I move to 30%, which I have tested, and I'll show that on screen in a second, you can see once, you can see how much faster that starts. So I'll show that on screen now. Instead of scaling the acceleration curve with the dead zone, so that once you pass the dead zone you start at the minimum speed and then build up, this just cuts it off, so there's no movement, and then the acceleration curve is calculated as if it were with the 0% dead zone. And this means that you're functionally losing speed. So in this case, 30% dead zone, you're moving at about 40% of your total speed right as soon as you pass the dead zone. So you don't have access to, 10% of your speed, 1% of your speed, any of those values. And since it caps at 50, we can use the extreme example and move this up to 50. And once we pass the dead zone, and I'm not changing the grass for any of this, so sorry about that. But you can see that we're moving at max speed. And you can see that if we move further, there's no speed transition. So you basically have nothing to max speed. Of course, most players are going to be using smaller dead zones, but because of how this works, any dead zone over 0% is just cutting off precise values from the player. So that's really bad, and because of how scrunched the normal acceleration curve is, if this was stretched across to 1, this would mitigate things dramatically, even though this issue would still be there. But because everything is scrunched, you cut off precise values very quickly, and that's just not good. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the diagonal acceleration is faster than the horizontal and vertical. So this is the horizontal turn speed, vertical turn speed, and this is the diagonal turn speed. Now, it might be a little difficult to see, but hopefully you can see a difference. It's definitely something you feel. And the diagonals are faster, and they shouldn't be. They should be the same speed, or at least the speeds between the horizontal and vertical movements. And this could happen for a variety of reasons. Here, I think it's just because the acceleration is being set up per axis and then just added up at the end. So, for example, horizontally, you can see that we have this build up here, and then we have it cap at like 50, and there's no change from here to here. And vertically, that would be the same, though you can't really see it since it'll cap pretty quick. So these are done separately and then just functionally add up during gameplay. So because they're capping at 50, it's probably right around here, 50-50, where both cap. And you can kind of see this horizontally as well, where I can move, horizontally 20 and then change vertically, but you see there's no change in the turn speed. And normally there would be a change because you're changing both on magnitude right here from this is quite far from the center, where this is much closer, and the angle changes, which would change the output horizontal and vertical speeds. So they're just being added up. So that would mean that the perfect diagonal would be up to 40% faster than the pure cardinal directions. So these are the issues that Ion Fury has, and there is a DLC coming. Hopefully we can see these options, or excuse me, these things fixed with that DLC. So the square dead zones changed to circular dead zones. The dead zone options are great again. The acceleration curve should be stretched out. It doesn't have to reach 1, but I mean, instead of 50 being the outer dead zone, it should be at least 90 or 95. And having an acceleration curve option 2 would be great, being able to control the exponent so that players can play at a linear curve if they wanted, or any value in between. But the acceleration curve should scale with the dead zone, so that if you play at a ridiculous 50% dead zone, you can still access small speeds. Players that need larger dead zones shouldn't be disadvantaged or just completely locked off from access to those dead zones, or to those low speeds. And then lastly, making the diagonal acceleration the same as the cardinal acceleration. That would make aiming feel quite a bit better in this game and quite a bit more consistent. So yeah, hopefully we can see those things added with the this DLC update. But that about covers it, so thanks for watching, and have a good rest of your day.